Happy Wednesday to you, and thanks so much for joining us on UpNorthLive Unscripted at 6:30. Well, a couple of good news weather-wise to pass along tonight. First of all, we are getting a bit of a break from the snow, which is awesome, and a lot of us are seeing some sunshine tonight. So a double whammy there. And Trevor, I know that I mentioned we're getting a break in the snow because we do have more in the forecast. So how long will this break last?
Yeah, it'll last a couple of days, mainly tomorrow. Tomorrow will be another good day for most people. There's the possibility for a few showers in like rain or snow, maybe a little bit of mix for some people up north. Otherwise, it'll be another quiet day tomorrow. A bit breezy at times, but a good day. Warmer temperatures too. That's one thing about today is that it looked really nice, but it was still kind of chilly for late March. You know, we don't like that. But hey, we'll take our bonuses when we can get them. And tomorrow will be a good day as well. But this weekend does not look good. We got snow, freezing rain, and sleet in the forecast possibly this weekend. So we'll talk about that when we come back in just a few minutes.
All right, thanks so much, Trevor. Our top story tonight is about the different issues that food banks across northern Michigan are facing right now. First, there is a growing need for more help from the community, just more help in general, and of course, more food. And second, with changes and cuts by the Trump administration, a very uncertain future when it comes to their federal funding or partnerships with federal funding or different agencies that actually do get that federal funding. So tonight, our Mark Shillette has a closer look at the impact that is already being felt and what food banks are asking from those who are blessed enough to be able to help.
It's what we're built on, neighbors helping neighbors.
And every year, more and more neighbors have been turning to Bacon for a little help.
We had almost 9,000 visits to our facility last year. The majority of those are for food assistance.
Last year, Benzie area Christian neighbors saw a 23% growth in need of what they offer.
It's food. It is absolutely food is the number one need that we're answering.
Keeping these shelves full and keeping up with the demand of people in need has never been easy or cheap. But Bacon has relied on a collaboration with other nonprofits to maximize what they offer.
Bacon is very much a community-supported organization. We do not receive federal funding directly. However, we benefit tremendously from federally subsidized programs through our partners, through our coalitions and collaboratives with Feeding America and Food Rescue. So if they face funding cuts, that is absolutely going to trickle down to our organization.
And it's starting to. The USDA facing cuts from the White House announcing that hundreds of thousands of pounds of food and tens of millions of dollars won't be coming to Michigan in the next several months. Feeding America, one of the larger agencies impacted, explaining, quote, "We oppose efforts to cut resources to those vitally needed programs. We also advocate for tax policies that strengthen charitable giving incentives, policies to encourage the donation of surplus wholesome food, and tax incentives that help lift working families out of poverty." While Bacon doesn't directly get federal funds, they count on agencies who do, like Feeding America. And without those, things get more challenging and more expensive here.
We receive about 15% of our food through those funding sources. So if that gets cut, we are going to have to go out on the open market to grocery stores and purchase that food at retail cost versus, significantly reduced savings.
Like many organizations that rely on federal funds, Bacon is having to make plans without a lot of information right now.
The question becomes, what kind of emergency is this? Is it a short-term one that's going to resolve itself? Or are we looking at a new funding scenario for years into the future?
What they do know is that folks will show up here every day in need of food. With the uncertainty out of Washington, now may be the perfect time for everyone to embrace their mission of neighbors helping neighbors.
So we can support the organizations that we believe in locally. So let's keep our money here locally. We help our neighbors, we help one another. People can donate by going to our website, stopping by our office, see what we do here in the building, and making contributions online.
That was Mark Shillette reporting. Now, Bacon says they have had multiple discussions about how to plan for the future, and they are confident that they will be around for another 40 years to continue serving the community. But like many organizations and nonprofits across a broad spectrum of different services. They just don't know how long the cuts and freezes will be in place, and that makes it very difficult to make any sort of long-term plans. Well, today marks the 1-year anniversary since the Francis Scott Key Bridge collapsed in Baltimore after a container ship ran into it, and a disaster that brought more awareness to declining infrastructure. And now there's a new piece of technology that is intended to detect any sort of fault before anyone else can. It's actually being invented right here in northern Michigan, and our very own Daniel Zivian gives us a sneak peek of this new technology.
While the collapse in Baltimore was a shock for that community and beyond, no one could have been less surprised than Dr. Nizar Lajnev, a civil engineering professor at Michigan State University.
We did nothing for many decades, and now we are hitting the point where most of the infrastructure is toward the end of its lifetime. And we don't have the resources to rebuild everything. That's one thing. And also, we don't have the resources to monitor continuously every single bridge.
Lajnev and his colleagues have created a system called MIDAS, short for Mechanics-Informed Damage Assessment of Structure. Sensors placed at strategic points track how bridges behave when a truck goes over or when the wind blows, and report anomalies. The sensor can fit in the palm of your hand.
They have AI on board, so they go there, they sit, they listen, they learn, and they will call you if there's a problem. They will transmit the information to you. We're talking about below $100 a piece, and it will get below $10 a piece eventually on large-scale production.
Lajnev says they first tested MIDAS on the Mackinac Bridge and have since deployed it to more than 20 bridges worldwide. He claims that if MIDAS was installed on the Francis Scott Key Bridge, the collision would not have been as catastrophic.
We would know that to go and reinforce the weak points. So even if it gets hit, it's not going to collapse right away. It's going to give us enough time to save lives, enough time to get people out, and also it gives us strategies to cost effectively fix it.
In northern Michigan, I'm Daniel Zivian reporting.
And Daniel is going to join us live now for much more on this story. Daniel, thanks again so much for being here on Unscripted.
Hi, Maya. Nice to see you.
So just so I understood this correctly, this technology is already on some bridges across the country?
Across the world, if I understood the professor correctly, 20 plus. It's unclear to me whether after they tested it on the Mackinac Bridge, they then took it down and brought it back in. That seems like a likely thing to do if it was a test, bring back those machines. But I just don't know exactly how that played out. But this is a technology that they're already deploying. I asked him, is there a timeline you want to give us, or is it safe to say that any government can come to you and get a contract for this? And the answer is apparently yes. They are open for business.
So could we see this technology on the Mackinac Bridge anytime soon?
Quite conceivably, especially since that's a relationship that was already established with the Bridge Authority, between the Bridge Authority and these researchers.
Sure. And something that was really interesting about this story, of course, today is the 1-year anniversary since the Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore collapsed. And we heard the professor say that if that bridge would have had this technology, the incident wouldn't have been as catastrophic. Can you talk a little bit more about why he thinks that's the case?
It really comes down to the artificial intelligence system that this technology is running on. People think of AI right now as, the complicated thing that can write whole paragraphs for me. This is a lot more simpler of a technology, but still, of course, very complicated and very impressive. You place all of these sensors, and I wish we could go back and show that graphic if that's possible, because that graphic really illustrates it. You put the sensors all over the bridge. They fit in the palm of your hand, hundreds of them. And they detect the motions of the bridge as things happen. And, that gets fed into the sensor as data. So when something unusual is happening, the data will come out differently. And these sensors are trained to recognize that. As the longer they spend on a bridge, the more data they accumulate. And they can learn, essentially. When we talk about machine learning, that's the kind of learning we mean, that it knows all of this stuff and then can send it to the right people, the bridge authorities, or even these researchers. He also said that there's another part of the system that can even draw up repair scenarios or other types of scenarios So it's a little bit more involved than just the sensors, but the sensors are the centerpiece. If those had been on the Francis Scott Key Bridge, is the claim, if those sensors were on the pier that was struck and collapsed, then perhaps there would have been data showing, hey, this is a little bit of a structurally weak thing. We should look at reinforcing it, if not rebuilding the whole thing. But the whole idea is, you could save millions, billions of dollars if you could prevent stuff from happening in advance.
And so do we know how often, let's say the Mackinac Bridge, for example, so these scanners, these AI, I don't know, what are they called?
Well, the system is called Midas.
Okay.
And I put the acronym on there. It's a bit of a complicated acronym. And I think the whole point was to get it to Midas. Everything the technology touches should ideally turn to gold. They're sensors, for lack of a better term.
The Midas sensors, let's say they are on the Mackinac Bridge, obviously then they would be able to gather information and alert different people of like, hey, this is happening, maybe we need to take a closer look at that. So right now, the Mackinac Bridge doesn't have this system in place. So do we know how often the bridge is actually examined to make sure all of these structures are sound and there are no issues?
I'm afraid that is a question for the Bridge Authority. And I didn't have the chance to speak with the Bridge Authority today. Back when this happened, both myself and Mark Shillette did stories on, because everyone wanted to know, wait a minute, this happened in Baltimore, could it happen here?
Right.
And unfortunately, I kind of focused on a different aspect, which was on the cargo ships that pass under the bridge. I familiarized myself very much. I spoke with the Great Lakes Navigators, and they told me how, we're not going to let that happen for this, and this reason. But that leaves me with a knowledge blind spot on the actual bridge structure itself.
Yeah, understandable. I was just curious, and I wasn't sure if you had those answers. But is there anything else, Daniel, that we haven't talked about yet that you think is really interesting or worth mentioning about this story?
It's always a good question from you, and I'm never quite ready for it, and that's on me. But I think that really sums it up, is just, we should emphasize when the professor claims that if they had the technology there, they're only talking about this now because it's ready to go. So, nothing's being hidden from anyone. There wasn't a situation where the Francis Scott Key Bridge could have had this technology. It's really just a case of poor timing. The technology is ready now. And hopefully for the future, that can mean less catastrophes. And just think of the lives that could be saved and the money that could be saved, just being able to know this stuff in advance. His point was very salient, just how much infrastructure there is in America and how hard it is to monitor absolutely everything.
Sure. Yeah, that's a great point. All right, Daniel, thanks so much for joining us and for diving a little deeper into your story. We really appreciate it. And I did skip this earlier, so let's turn things over to our question of the day. It was related to Mark's story. That was a story at the very top of our show related to the different issues that food banks across northern Michigan are facing right now due to cuts and freezes in federal funding. So our question today is, have you or someone you know had to rely on a food pantry? Scan the QR code on your screen right now. That will take you to our website. And just so everyone knows, if you do vote, your name doesn't show up or anything like that. So it is more of an anonymous vote. So if you don't feel comfortable sharing this information, just know that we won't actually know anything about you who is voting. All we know is the number of people who vote. So right now we have 164 votes, and 57% say yes, they have or they know someone who has had to rely on a food pantry. So it just goes to show how this uncertain future of different food pantries who rely on federal funding, how big of an impact that could potentially have across northern Michigan. All right, we are going to take a quick commercial break, but coming up in just a couple of minutes, meteorologist Trevor Robidell will have much more in your forecast for tomorrow. Sounds like it'll be another sunny and a bit of a warmer day, and then the weekend, which could be a little messy. He'll break down the details next.
I'm Jada Johnson from Big Boys TV, and the Fish and Game Report is sponsored by Johnson's Propane.
If you are a fan of sunny and dry days, you should probably take advantage of the rest of the day today and tomorrow, because after that we have some messy weather in store for us this weekend. For more on that, let's turn things over to meteorologist Trevor Robideau with the details. Hey, Trevor.
Hello, Maya. You're absolutely right. It's going to be a nice day tomorrow. We'll still have mostly sunny skies. It'll be quiet. Not really much chances for rain. We do have a slight chance for maybe some rain or snow. But warmer temperatures are always nice. And as you mentioned, the weekend looks a bit dicey, especially if you're up north near the Straits or especially north of the bridge into the eastern upper. We'll start with our national temperatures outside tonight. It was cold for us. If you look over towards northern Michigan, the Sault Ste. Marie temperature on the map is a whopping 38. Not where we want to be in the end of March, but much of the country, especially south and off to the west, are experiencing much warmer temperatures into the 80s. In Phoenix, not even April or May yet, they're already in the 90s. The good old desert of Phoenix staying on the warmer side. Now, in between this boundary of warmer and colder air, especially along the Dakotas through Minnesota and Iowa, we call those ridge runners, there's some rain along that, and that's going to be heading our way. Here's a look at our temperature outlook before we get to that. Temperatures are going to stay on the colder side here in northern Michigan, even though much of the country is experiencing warmer weather. We will not be. Right now, it's quiet outside. Nothing really to speak of. We'll stay quiet for the remainder of tonight. There's the ridge runners that I was talking about over much of the Midwest, Minnesota, the Dakotas, and parts of Iowa. The difference in temperature along that boundary is causing some rain showers in that region tonight. And also, a little bit north of that, north of Lake Superior, there's a small pocket of rain as well. Now, there is the chance that a little bit of that rain could impact us in parts of tomorrow, but otherwise, it should stay quiet. For the remainder of tonight, as I mentioned, no problems. Mostly clear skies and quiet, a wind out of the south and southwest. And then tomorrow, we'll still have that wind in the south and southwest, especially early on, 7 o'clock. No problems if you're heading to work early in the morning. Now, if you look up to the northeast, especially near the Sioux and in the eastern upper, there is the possibility that as that system that I mentioned in Canada passes, we could be clipped by a few rain, mix, or even snow showers up to the north and possibly along the straits or off to the east. Otherwise, far to the south and southwest, it should be quiet for the majority of the day tomorrow. Some passing clouds down through our southern counties with that system in the Midwest, but I don't think any of that rain will impact us, and we'll have more cloud cover moving in throughout the day with a wind swapping to out of the north and northwest. Otherwise, a quiet day tomorrow. Here's the weekend, though. Another system is going to come out of the Canada region, and most of Friday morning and early on, it should be fine and quiet. But the second half of the day into the evening, that's when we're going to start seeing some mix and rain move through the region, potentially even snow through parts of Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Most of us in the northern lower, it should be just rain, but parts of the eastern upper, especially along the straits and eastern upper, potentially freezing rain, mix, sleet, and potentially even heavy snow will be possible. We'll keep an eye on that. Tonight, 21 to 31, partly to mostly clear, quiet. And tomorrow, same story. Partly to mostly sunny, should have lots of sunshine, especially early on, with a northwest wind developing in the afternoon. A bit breezy tomorrow, and a few of those mixed showers as well. Otherwise, quiet, and it'll stay that way until Friday, where things get active, and we stay on the colder side for the next 7 days.
Fun stuff ahead of us. All right, thanks so much, Trevor. We're going to take a quick commercial break, but straight ahead, we will bring in sports director Harrison Beebe. Stay with us. is the eve of opening day for the Detroit Tigers. For a preview of their opening day matchup against the Dodgers, let's turn things over to sports director Harrison Beebe. And Harrison, I know for the Dodgers, they've already actually played a game this season.
They've played 2 games this season. They're 2-0 to the year, and the Chicago Cubs are 0-2 so far. They started the year with a 2-game series in Japan last week. But it's, as you said, Maya, Tigers-Dodgers tomorrow night. A biggie. I believe the affiliate of our ABC broadcasting partner here, ESPN, will have the opening day matchup tomorrow night. Tarek Skubal is going to get the start for the Tigers in a matchup against the best team in baseball and the most expensive team in baseball in the Dodgers. So it won't be easy, but the beauty of it is you don't have to judge them too harshly. It is, after all, 162-game regular season, and they're going to have the first 6 on the road. So kind of be able to tinker with some stuff. A lot of managers I've spoken with, either at the smaller baseball levels or whatnot, have said they kind of like starting the season on the road, allowing them to kind of get everything in check before they actually make that debut in front of the home crowd. And that will be for the Tigers a week from Friday when they host the Chicago White Sox. So, yep, in the midst of March Madness and the NBA and NHL, can't forget about baseball. That always starts here and is that other sign of spring, really, for sports and the rest of us as we look forward to warmer days ahead.
And Harrison, I know last year we talked about predictions for the Tigers season. Shall we make some predictions for this season? How many games do you think the Tigers could win?
You know, I could see them hovering around the 500 mark. I know they perform. I think they had 86 offhand. I was actually listening to a podcast talking about the season this morning. So I think they went well into the 80s last year on that great run to the playoffs. I could see them being a 500 team again. I think it's going to be very tough to capture the lightning in a bottle style of play they had at the end of last season, making that run to the postseason. But I think this roster is hungry. I like the additions they did make, although maybe not as splashy to the baseball fanatic as far as numbers and salary goes. I think the Tigers will be competitive in what is still a very potentially winnable AL Central.
And we will get our first look at regular season Tigers baseball tomorrow against the Dodgers. Thanks so much, Harrison, for joining us. Let's take a quick commercial break. But coming up next, we will take another look at the question of the day and the live results. Stay with us.
Salon services are furnished by Epiphany Advanced Academy in East Acme.
There is a lot of uncertainty right now for different food pantries across northern Michigan that rely on federal funding to be able to provide this food for people after some recent cuts from the Trump administration. So we wanted to know, have you or someone you know had to rely on a food pantry? And more than half of voters, 57%, said yes, they or someone they know do or does have to rely on food pantries. So I'm sure a lot of people are a bit worried about the recent cuts, but we, of course, will continue to keep you updated on everything happening at the federal level. That'll do it for Unscripted. Thanks so much for joining us.